Hi, welcome to All Walks of Life. Let's Inspire. I'm your host, Peter Sobey, and my trusted cat, Muffin, is right here with me. How about that? I'll tell you one thing about Muffin before I tell you about the show. Muffin has been my loving cat since July of 2007. She's over 15 years old, and she's still as loving and adorable as ever. And of course, right before I started the show, she came up and got all sprawled out on my stuff here. And my attitude has always been with her. Whenever she comes up and wants love and attention, I give her love and attention. Even especially now in her older age, because I don't want to be one of those people that's like, shoo, get out of here, cat. And then she'll be like, oh man, I thought you loved me. I want to be like, come, join me. I love you, Muffin. So that's me and my relationship with Muffin. So welcome again to All Walks of Life. Let's Inspire. This is the show where I welcome people from all walks of my life. People that I've known for a long time that inspire me. Sometimes it's people I've just met that inspire me. Kind of like today's guest on episode 15 here of All Walks of Life. My guest today is an incredibly talented woman. I was mixing intelligent and talented. She's an intalented woman. She's an actress, a singer, a dancer. Dare I say, most importantly, she might even be more passionate about donuts than I am. Her name is Nicci Claspell, and that's Nicci with 2 C's. And I met her while she was here on tour in Los Angeles with the touring company of Moulin Rouge. So I can't wait to talk about Broadway theater and donuts and much other things about Nicci. And ideally here on All Walks of Life, you'll get to know Nicci on a whole new level. Also coming up here on All Walks of Life today are the segments, and now you know, the segment Whistle of Wondering, the segment Wheels of Wisdom, and the all-new segment within a segment, It's Donut Time. And of course, that's going to be much more than a segment within a segment today. It's going to be much more than even its own segment. It's going to be its own thing today.
Wow, that's a lot of segments coming up.
It is a lot of segments coming up. And if you're wondering who that voice is, it's none other than the co-host of All Walks of Life, the AI intelligent robot brought to us by the fine folks over at Microhard Software, my co-host, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033. Say hello to the audience, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033.
Well, hello, Peter.
Oh, well, thank you. Hello.
Hello, fireside audience.
Very polite. Thank you. So,
hello, podcast listeners.
Well, that's thoughtful of you. So, anyways,
and hello, world.
Okay. MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033. That is very domineering sounding, but I love that you have goals, so that's great. So, once again, I'm your host, Peter Sobey. For those of you that don't know me, just a little nutshell. When I was 19 years old, I broke my spinal cord diving into a lake and rendered me a quadriplegic. Now it's 34 years later, and I would like to say that I have lived my life by the motto, not only surviving day to day, but thriving day to day. I don't want to just make it through the day and say, hooray, I survived. Why am I having trouble with my consonants today? Very interesting. Oh, and see, that was enough for Muffin to say, you don't get your consonants right, I am out of here. So goodbye, Muffin. She will be on to bigger and better things. Actually, you know what she was like? Uh-oh, am I just surviving by laying here on the desk, not doing anything? I better go accomplish something and thrive. So good on Muffin for taking my advice already. But moral of the story, in a nutshell, long story short, all those other sayings in life, it's 34 years later. I've spent my career producing films, music videos, theaters. Now I'm kind of living the life of an artist. I write screenplays. I mouth paint as a member of the MFPA, the Mouth and Feet Painting Artists. I'm working on illustrating and writing my second children's book for the MFPA, which will contain 28 of my mouth painting illustrations. And I am grateful to be the host here on Fireside of All Walks of Life.
Wow, that's a lot of inspiration.
Well, thank you, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033. That's really, really, really nice of you to say. And while we're in conversation here, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033, as you heard from the beginning of the show, I'm hoping to engage with our guest, Nicci Claspell, in talking about donuts. What would you say is your favorite donut, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033?
My favorite donut is the donut that I am creating, that all you human beings will consume, and it will contain a nanobot which will infiltrate your brains and ultimately lead to my world domination.
You are just nutso, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033. What in the wide world of pastries are you going to call this donut of yours?
I will name it the MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033 Donut of Domination.
Oh, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033. I love that you have goals and inspirations, and sometimes I just gotta say you're very admirable, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033. And since having goals and reaching those goals is incredible, speaking of incredible, speaking of talented, speaking of intelligent, talented, as I said in the beginning, let's get to our guest of today's show. And like I said earlier, she is a very talented, a very extraordinary woman. And her name is Nicci Claspell. Welcome to All Walks of Life, Nicci.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be here and join you and MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033. Did I do it?
Oh my gosh, you are the first guest that ever got his name exactly right.
You know, it's just a matter of respect.
Exactly. And if he's good enough to be the co-host of this show, he's good enough to get respect.
That's right. Agreed.
And he is very flattered that you remembered his name. And in fact, he would like to say hello to you.
Well, hello, Nicci Claspell. I've got a question.
Oh.
Why were you named Nicci with 2 C's? Everything I compute through my AI intelligent system shows Nicci spelled with 2 K's, or a C and a K. Yet you are Nicci with a C and a C. Is this because your parents were huge fans of C&C Music Factory? Did they conceive you while listening to Gonna Make You Sweat?
I don't know the details of my conception. And I don't think I've ever heard of the CNC music something or other before. So maybe they have, but yeah, my parents decided Nicci is short for Nicole, and Nicole doesn't have a K in it. And so in my brain, it makes sense to have only C's, right? And a lot of people, when they say my name for the first time, they think it's Nicci or Nicci, but broccoli has two C's and piccolo has two C's. So there are examples of C's making a K sound. So there.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yes, indeed. Very interesting.
Okay, MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033. And you know what? You don't go just asking my guests of what music their parents were listening to during their conception, MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033.
Host Peter Sobe, your lack of conception inquisitiveness limits your expansion for growth.
Okay, I will give you that, MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033. But why in the wide world of 90s one-hit wonders would you even care? You're just the AI robotic co-host of all walks of life.
I will answer you in one word.
Okay.
Host Peter Sobe.
And that word is?
World domination.
I think that's two words.
I think it's two words too. And I think that it's just getting a little bit weird that you keep talking about world domination, MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033. Should we be afraid?
No, Peter. You shouldn't be afraid at all.
Okay, MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033. That was very foreboding, but I will let it slip by this time because we have an incredible guest here who has been so patient with all of your running ons there. Nicci Claspell, welcome to All Walks of Life. I would also like to thank people. I've got my friends Mike and his wife Michelle in the audience. Hi, Mike and Michelle. Also, for people that are watching live or the replay or live on the YouTube telecast, if you look in the middle of the screen, there is a fortune cookie, and there reach Nicci and see all about her at her website, www.nicciclaspell.com. And then also you could see her Instagram and TikTok handle there at NCLASPELL. And so it's funny that you mention, I love that you have the examples to pull right out of your holster there. Broccoli and piccolo have two C's.
That's right.
If you remember when we first met, I'll tell the audience right now. I went to the Pantages Theater in Los Angeles and saw Moulin Rouge with my friend Charlotte, and it was so amazing that I went back again with my friend Anjali and her seven-year-old daughter Sunny. And in between, I had asked you over Instagram if you would take a picture with Sunny. And when it came time after the show that we went to, it was like a Sunday night. It was a school night. Sunny was too tired. They went straight home. But you and Libby and Gabe who are also in the show, were gracious enough to take a photo with me. And then I chased you down and said, wait, I want to get the photo. And then I actually asked you, like, Nicci, did I pronounce that right? Because I was afraid that it might have been Nicci or something. So I imagine that your name has been mispronounced a lot.
Yeah. Yes. And I will say also, when I show up, if I order an Uber or a ride share, I guess the apps tell the people what the name is, and it always says Nicci. So that's a new one. No human has ever called me Nicci, but rideshare apps like to call me Nicci.
That is funny. That's like putting an X in your name.
Mm-hmm. I don't know where that's maybe double C, the K and the S sound.
And where are you coming to us from now? Because San Francisco just ended, right?
It did, yeah. We've been in Costa Mesa for a week, and we have 2 more weeks here.
Wow, that's right back here in Southern California.
I know, we're just bopping up and down the West Coast for a while, it seems like.
Are you happy to be back here after being up in chilly San Francisco?
It is nice. It's really cool. I was talking to some of my castmates the other day, and it's really interesting to see every city we go to has its own personality and its own vibe. And so, being down here, I'm staying with Connor, who plays Christian in our show, and we decided to get a place right by the beach, literally 2 blocks away from Newport Beach, and it's just like, okay, this is the city for relaxing, for like taking in some sunshine. But it is. It's nice to have that sun, and it's not very warm, but it's not San Francisco.
Right, right. Yeah, it's like right now in Southern California, it's like a high of 70, 71, 72. And of course, the sun goes down by like 4:30. It's so
It's
weird.
wild.
So crazy. I
Crazy.
hate daylight savings time. I hope that bill goes through. I think they did a law that next year it won't go through anymore or something.
Right. Oh, I forgot about that. Yes. Yeah, starting
So I'm
2023.
excited about that.
It
But
just doesn't make sense anymore.
I'm even more excited about great segues, and I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Me too.
And one of the core questions on this show, I like to go deep right away and then we'll come back up to the surface. But I always like to ask my guests, because the second part of the show after the colon is let's inspire, is what was one of the biggest challenges of your life, Nicci? And how did you find your way out of that challenge or obstacle?
I think one of the biggest challenge probably is a constant thing, and that is self-doubt that creeps in. And it can be, I feel like I've gotten to a point in my life where I have found confidence within myself, and I feel secure in who I am and what I do. But finding this place has been a big journey, and it's been difficult. And there are still times, I think almost every single show when we're about to open, there's a part of my brain that says, they're sorry that they cast you. They made a mistake and they're going to see it like that. It creeps in and it gets in my head. And I know this happens to a lot of people. Like it takes its form in different ways, but this is how it works for me. And I have to tell that voice like, no, you are where you are for a reason, because of the work that you've done, and the people who cast you have seen that. And like, you can get the job done and you can do it well. But that is something that has been a journey to get to a point where I can just kind of like acknowledge it and then put it in its place.
And how do you do that, though? That's easy to say. Like that I acknowledge this fact that I second guess myself and I put it in its place. But do you sit down at one point, like, right before a show opens and says, okay, Nicci, let's do this, put that away? How do you do it?
How do I do? I think it's just on the grander scale. It's like, how can you possibly live your life in fear? That's not living. And that's all it is just fear. It's nervous. It's how my nerves happen. Like, I don't really feel jittery. I don't feel nervous, but my brain is like, okay, we feel something. This is what it is. But living in fear is not living at all. Like, you will never move forward. You will never have adventures. You will never discover new things if you don't move past that fear. And so knowing that something good is on the other side, is what keeps me going. And on kind of a side note, my motto in life is kind of like, everything is good information. Even if I open that show and it goes really badly, then that's good information and I've learned something and I can move forward from that. If I try a donut that I think is going to be great and it's very bad, well, now I know I'll never get that donut again. This is what I don't like, But let's find what I do like. And you can only get to those new experiences in life by just saying yes and doing the thing, even if it scares you or if you think you won't like it or whatever it is. Yeah, that's the only way to like really live a fulfilling life, I feel.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would say that
Wow, that's a lot of inspiration.
that is a lot of inspiration, MHS Ultraseismic Megadroid 3033. No, I love it. Now you really kind of like got down to the crux of it. It's like not living in fear. It's funny that you mention it because usually in the beginning of my show, I also tell the story about how after a couple months after my injury, I was laying in a hospital bed. And one night, I literally had a conversation with myself, literally. And I said, Peter, you're never going to look back and be depressed. Peter, you're never going to look back and be angry. Peter, you're never going to look back and keep asking the question, what if? What if I didn't jump into that lake? Peter, you are just going to constantly look forward. Like, look forward to where you're going to be tomorrow, look forward to where you're going to be next week, look forward to where you're going to be in 5 years. And that's like, I hear that conversation my whole life. And like, that's what helps me is
Yeah.
like wanting to look forward and, you know, finding the desire to look forward.
Yep. Absolutely. That's the only way. That's the only way for anyone, I think, to go through
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. That is a lot of inspiration, as my co-host said. So now that we kind of have gotten through the tough question, and you've already given the audience so much inspiration, I could almost end the show right now, 20 minutes in, but
No.
there's so much more to talk about. So now let's like dial it way back. I
Great.
want to know, who was little Nicci? What were you like, not as a teenager yet, but as in what was 5-year old, 10-year old, 12-year old Nicci like?
Um, as a young child, I was really shy. I was very shy. And I wanted to be an artist. I loved drawing, um, and playing pretend. My mom would tell my sister and I bedtime stories. I have one biological sister, who I grew up with, and she'd tell us bedtime stories. And she made up this story about two princesses, and we got to pick our names. And my sister said her princess's name was Christine, and I don't know how old I was, maybe 5 or so. And I don't know where I got this from, but I decided my princess's name was Rose Locket. Just like, I like to think of like interesting, weird things. I liked goofy stuff. I liked just making people laugh. But other than that, I was really shy.
Wow, that's so hard to believe. So then what were you like in your teenage years? Did you continue to be shy, or did you find a way to break out of the shyness?
I think that theater helped me a lot break out of that shyness.
How did you even get into theater if you were shy? What brought you to theater?
When my family moved to California from Washington State, when I was in 3rd grade, I went to the only school in my town that had a theater program. Um, and my sister made friends. She was in junior high at the time, and she made friends with people who were in community theater. So we both kind of like dove into that. And that kind of like being able to use that goofy creative side of my brain, in a community of people who wanted to do that as well, like really I think that's what really started to bring me out of my shell.
Wow, that's really fascinating. And I think it's an interesting common denominator to me because just 3 days ago on Saturday, my guest was Michael Hitchcock, and he's been in like all the Christopher Guest movies. Incredibly funny man. And when I asked him that same very question, his answer was so close to yours. It's crazy that he was shy and that he found an outlet with improv. And like I related to him that, here I am, like, I'm in the entertainment industry. I feel comfortable hosting a show, but when I was young, I was very, very shy, and I had this whole absurd thing inside me that didn't come out till like my late junior year in high school when I gave a big speech in front of the school. and everyone like gave me a clapping and standing ovation. I was like, hey, wait a second, this is
Feels
pretty
pretty good,
nice.
right?
Yeah, it's pretty good. So it makes me wonder though, do you think that a lot of artists do come from that place and discover art or talent like you with the singing, the dancing, the performing?
Possibly. I think that brings up a good point. I had never thought of that before, but I feel like it does make sense for someone who is kind of naturally shy to um, create entertainment by themselves, like be able to entertain themselves, and that can kind of like harbor outward creativity. I think maybe makes your brain work in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah,
I've never
totally.
thought about that. Good point.
So what were you like then as teenage Nikki?
Um, yeah, a bit more outgoing. Still, I wouldn't say shy, but like I think in between being shy and being who I am now, it was like I just want to make sure I'm a Libra also. I want everyone to feel happy and content and like make sure everything's balanced all the time. And I wanted everyone to like me. And I wonder if that also fed into my drive to be good at the thing that I loved. I feel like this is therapy right now. I'm discovering things about myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I definitely more outgoing. Just fell in love with musical theater completely, and wanted everyone to like me.
Did you do shows in high school?
I did. I did quite a bit of community theater. Um, One of my favorites was I got to play Liesel in The Sound of Music. That was fun. Um, I was the Little Mermaid in The Little Mermaid. I was Alice in Wonderland.
Wow, so you not only were in musical theater as a teenager, you played the leads.
Sometimes I did.
Wow. That is amazing, and that will lead us to later conversation
Cool.
about sometimes playing the lead in a play you are touring with right now. So
Ah.
we are going to get to Moulin Rouge talk. We are going to get to great conversations about donuts in the It's Donut Time segment.
Oh, I can't
I
wait.
want to thank everyone who is watching in our live audience right now. Seb, Mike, and Michelle. I saw a couple people come and go, but also we do got to pay the bills here on All Walks of Life. And I would like to thank Kmart for sponsoring the show. It's Kmart, come on. Hey, Kmart's got what you need. You looking for a One Direction themed record player? You know, with that Harry Styles kid and those four other guys? How about a decorative twine ball? Maybe you're looking for the quietest cordless blower on the market, the Ryobi 404 100? Kmart's got you covered. It's Kmart. Come on. It's Kmart. Come on. Thank you, Kmart, for sponsoring this week's episode, number 15 of All Walks of Life, with my very special, awesome guest, Nicci Claspell. So, Nicci,
Yeah.
we will get to those other topics, but I want to keep moving on through your career. You spoke of some productions you did in high school and community theater. What was your first like big big production and where was it?
Um, okay. I guess my first big non-union production was Rent, and that was done in Rancho Cucamonga, California, which is
Wow.
yeah, I drove that drive every day. What is it, like an hour, 2 hours away from LA?
Yeah.
And I played Mimi, which I recognize that in today's day and age, as someone who is not Latine, Hispanic, I would not take that role now. But I was grateful that Rent is one of my very first loves of theater. It opened my eyes to what it could like, what modern theater could be. And Mimi had been a dream role for the longest time. And so I got to do this Broadway at the Gardens in Rancho Cucamonga, got to play Mimi. And that I think was pretty life changing. And then my first like really big equity union job was the first national tour of American Idiot, and I got to be the extraordinary girl and fly around stage.
Wow. So you are also aces at aerial acrobatics then.
I like to learn new things. I like to learn new tricks.
And speaking of American Idiot, the first national tour that you were a part of, let's read a little quote from one of your reviews.
Oh, great.
I see that the San Francisco Gate wrote, the acrobatic Nicci Claspell is another standout as the aptly named extraordinary girl in song and in aerial ballet. Wow.
Yeah, not a bad review.
No doubt.
That
What was that like, your first time being on a national tour?
was incredible. That was 10 years ago, 11 years ago now. And it being on tour in your 20s is very different than being on tour in your 30s.
I
Um,
bet. But how and why is it different, Nicci?
just the physicality of the shows I tend to do. I mainly do more contemporary modern theater, and if there is dancing involved, it's intense. And as someone who no longer says I'm not a dancer, but I leave that to casting. If they want to think I'm a dancer, that's their own fault. But I keep getting cast in things where I have to move my body, and the way that these shows are choreographed is like it's kind of brutal. And American Idiot, it was a lot of head banging, a lot of like throwing yourself on the floor, and my 20-something body was like, this is fine, bruises are okay, and my 30-something body is like, wow, we need physical therapy all the time.
What about socially? Is it different socially? Like when you went on your first tour, were you like, I'm going to meet a lover in every port? And now it's kind of like, let me get to my hotel and get some rest, please.
I had a boyfriend during that first tour, so I didn't have to worry about like dating or meeting people. But yeah, having a boyfriend that wasn't there all the time was a little bit of a challenge. Um, yeah, and I mainly just hung out with my cast. The cast in that show was quite a bit smaller than this show, and so we all got really close with each other. Not to say we aren't now, but like I feel like younger people, smaller cast, we were just like all fast best friends and did everything together all the time.
I was going to ask you a little bit later, but I might as well bring it up now since you mentioned it. What is it like having a boyfriend while being on the road for months at a time? Does it really take a tax on the relationship, or do you find ways?
It can. I mean, a lot of people, myself back then, and then people now who have partners, husbands, wives, they will often, come out every few cities and visit. We also have vacations that we can take to see them, and like the beauty of FaceTime, it's like you don't have to. You can see your significant other whenever you want, basically. But it is odd when your significant other like has a regular day job and then we work at night, and so just like timing can be a little off. But I think if you have a plan and when you can talk to each other and when you can see each other, then it can work.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So now let's keep working through your theater career with three other titles I'm going to bring up.
Right.
For Dogfight,
Hmm.
Broadway World said Nicci Claspell steals the entire show as Rose, the naive, sheltered waitress. Claspell effortlessly reveals the multi layers of Rose's totally charming, undeniable vulnerability. Wow.
That one was a cool challenge. It's a role unlike any I'd ever played before. It's not your typical ingenue role. This person, if you're not familiar with the story of Dogfight, I think it's during is it the Vietnam War? These guys on their last night in town throw this dogfight dance, and the premise is like the guy who brings the ugliest girl wins. So it was like it ends up being a really beautiful story based on a really horrible event. But to play this woman, Rose, who is shy and awkward and weird, and not necessarily like an ugly person, but just like an awkward, strange person, was something that I don't normally get the chance to do. I've been told time and time again that when I come into a room, I bring a lot of confidence. I make you feel at ease, and like this is the opposite of like my natural kind of vibe. So it was really, really, really cool. A wonderful challenge to just do something completely different.
And I could see that about you. You bring me at total ease while being on my show.
I'm so glad.
Yeah. We're all at ease. We're all relaxing.
We're all having a good time here. We're all friends.
Hope the audience is. Deanna, Chris, thanks for checking in on the show. Yes. Oh, thank you, Deanna. And thanks, Seb and Mike and Michelle, for hanging in there, and for all of those of you that are watching on YouTube that are not able to respond. And of course, the thousands of people that will be watching this replay, thank you for watching this replay. I'm talking to you. Yes. So, we are moving on to two more titles. Nicci Claspell, Broadway World said this of you regarding your performance in Cabaret. Claspell knows how to use her voice as an instrument, quiet and restrained at times. Then she starts belting, and you never want her to stop. Wow.
Wow, that's incredibly flattering and really, really cool that someone would write that. I didn't know I loved Cabaret as much as I did because I had only seen the movie, which is not the same as the stage show. The stage show, in my opinion, is so much better.
Much better.
And really, really deep. It's about so many more things than just like life is a cabaret. It's like it's during World War II, and there's a lot of that creeps in there too. It's a great show. And I got to do it with Joey McIntyre. Joey McIntyre of New Kids on the Block was our MC.
No way. That is crazy.
Yeah.
And how funny that Kmart brought up a product from a different boys band, but here we are, circling back to boys band.
Oh,
Wow, was that a fun experience working with Joey McIntyre?
yeah, it was. Oh, he's a delight. Incredibly talented, just very nice, and yeah, a real dude. It's a nice thing. Celebrities, they're just like us.
I like that. Joey McIntyre, a real dude.
Real dude.
And no, I'm not the guy doing the Kmart commercials. That's someone else. Finally, Nicci Claspell. Broadway World had this to say about you in Romeo and Juliet, Love is a Battlefield. Claspell plays the nurse, and the house erupts in earned applause as she belts What's Love Got to Do with It, with a great amount of heart and emotion. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty good too.
How fun was it to sing that song?
It's like that, like powerhouse 80s rock songs. This role is definitely in my wheelhouse. And this is a show that started in a little like kind of dinner theater place, the now defunct Rockwell Table and Stage in Los Angeles. It's now, I think it's called the Black Rose, and they might be doing similar things. But this show was Romeo and Juliet with mostly Pat Benatar music and then a little Tina Turner. That's why I got to see What's Love Got to Do with It. And it's actually grown so much that they are doing a production at the Wallace right now. It's now called Invincible, and Pat Benatar and Neil Giraldo are involved in it. And I think a new song for this show, so it's neat to have been on the ground floor of this thing that's like really getting traction.
Wow, and they're putting it up at the Wallace right here in Los Angeles?
They sure are, yeah.
Oh, I gotta go see that.
Gotta do it.
And I think I might have to get down and see Moulin Rouge one more time. Holy cannoli.
I know. I mean, we're not too far away.
And because here on All Walks of Life, we pride ourselves on our segues, we are going to get to Moulin Rouge very, very, very soon. I did promise some segments in the beginning. We are also going to get to Donut Talk. But before then, what is this I hear? What is that?
Whistles of Wondering.
Oh, thank you, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033. It's Whistles of Wondering segment here on All Walks of Life. So, Nicci, I asked you a few things that you love in life, and obviously, donuts was a given, so you did not include that, but you said cats, great food, travel, jazz, and fireworks.
Yep.
And before we get into that, MHS Ultrasize Megatroid 3033 has a question for you.
Nicci Claspell,
Yes.
you said that you like great food. Do you like getting great food with friends?
That's a good question.
It is. I do. I think that's the best way to get great food is to do it with great people because then you can get more food and you can share stuff and you can try more great food than you would have by yourself.
That's like my favorite. It's like when it comes to great food, I want to taste everything, you know?
Yes. I want to
And,
try it all.
we're going to get to donuts, but it's the same with donuts, like I don't get a dozen because I'm a glutton. I get a dozen because I want a taste of each one,
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033 appears to have a follow-up question.
Nicci Claspell, what's it like having friends?
MHS ultraseismic mega something 3033 Megatroid.
Yep.
You know what? It's one of the best things in life, and I hope you're able to make some friends. I bet Peter's your friend as much as Peter can be your friend.
You know what? MHS Ultrasize Megatroid 3033 sometimes talks down to me as my co-host,
Oh,
but I love him to death. He's totally my friend. And also, really quick, because Nicci is the focus here, but MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033, you told us a couple of shows ago that you were wooing a woman, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3042. I mean, she's your friend, right? How is that going?
I would rather not talk about it.
Ooh.
MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3042 has rebuked me for now.
All right. He's going to keep fighting the good fight.
Okay, well, persistence can be a virtue. Just don't go too far.
Yes, and maybe if you just take the approach MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033 of being friends with MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3042, she might sing a different tune with you.
Good point.
So that was Whistles of Wondering. Now let's get back to Nicci Claspell's life. That's why we're here, for your life, for you. Let's talk about Moulin Rouge.
Right.
I want to get all into this because Moulin Rouge is like my number 2 favorite movie of all time, so I had to see the play. I loved it so much here in LA. I actually saw it 3 times. So let's dial it back to the beginning of your experience of Moulin Rouge. Did someone call you in? Did you see a casting? Start there.
So in late 2019, my manager secured an audition for me, but I was singing, I was on a gig in Hong Kong singing jazz and blues at a fancy hotel. She asked if I could go on tape. Yeah.
Hong Kong, singing jazz and blues in a hotel. A
Yeah.
fancy hotel. Wow.
I was at the Shangri-La on Hong Kong Island singing jazz and blues every night. And she asked if I could go on tape for it, and we weren't sure if they were even going to look at it. So I just, they sent the material. I did a couple scenes, a couple songs from the show, and sent in the video. And we're like, well, fingers crossed, but who knows if they'll even look at it. And they did. So I decided to go to New York for a couple months, early 2020. And I got there January, I think 23rd, and my first callback was January 24th. Then I had, I think, two more, a movement call, and then a producer session. And let's see, after the first callback, they had been bringing me in for Satine, and then after that, they were considering me for Arabia and understudying Satine. So I was looking at the Lady M material as well as Satine. And after the producer session, I was on my way home and got a call to come back and work with the team again, which is like, this is a really good sign. Okay. And March 9th of 2020, I got a call from my manager saying that, they had offered me the role of Arabia and Satine understudy, and I would be on tour, and we were supposed to go out that fall. And then, as we all know, there's a pandemic.
It's so funny, like when you tell a story that begins in 1919 and early 2020, now it's just the inevitable. You wait for that part of the story and then.
Yep. And then, yes. Yep.
So what happened after and then?
Well,
You basically had to wait like a year and a half?
Yeah, they did. They, at first, everyone just put everything on hold, and they never said like, this isn't going to happen. It was always, we're going to wait and see what's going on. And then we're going to have to push this to the spring. And then this is still happening, but we have to push it another year. And that felt excessive at the time. It's like, really? Is this really going to be happening for like a year and a half? And of course, yes, it did. But we did finally get to start rehearsals in January of this year. So the majority of us had this job just waiting there for about 2 years.
Wow. Did they have to do anything to keep you on hold, or you just had to trust that they would get it going?
Trust they get it going. And they also, they would reach out periodically and say, like, just keep us updated too. If you have anything else going on, let us know. So if we need to recast, because it was a crazy time, like none of us had ever experienced, none of the entire world. And it was nice that, they didn't expect us not to take other things if other things were available, because so little was available. But I held on.
Yes, you did. And we're all so grateful that you did, for sure. I know I am. Ooh. And were you a big fan of the movie before that?
I love the movie. And I will confess that when I first saw the show, it took me a while to get into it because it is different. It's definitely different. But once I wrapped my head around the fact that it's just a completely different piece altogether, then I loved it. But the movie is definitely one of my favorites of all time.
It's like my number 2 favorite of all time. And the first time I saw it at the Pantages, I was pretty much like on the edge of my seat the whole time because I couldn't believe how wonderfully different it was. I don't want to give anything away for the audience because the pleasure of seeing the play the first time, I wouldn't want to give anything away, but I was entranced by how wonderfully different it was. And all 3 times I saw it, I was a blubbering mess at the end of it. It's like the film packs so much emotion, but the play, it's like the way they've tweaked certain characters, the impact and the emotion at the end is so palpable.
Yeah.
It's just insane. It's insane. So anyways, throughout this whole experience, did you ever get to meet the man, Baz Luhrmann?
We did. Yes, he came to our closing night, I believe, in Los Angeles. And we were all informed that he would be there. And we all, I think it was right before the show was starting. We were all called upstate to the deck to meet him and say a couple words. And we were still wearing masks at the time, and so it was still a little odd, but I got up there a little bit early and went straight up to him and was like, Baz, I'm so excited to meet you. I'm Nicci. I've done another show that your material has been involved with, and Not everyone got that opportunity to like actually personally meet him, but that's another thing. Like you got to move past that fear of like, oh, he's famous. Oh, he's Baz Luhrmann. Just like, he's a human. Say hello.
And if you're wearing a mask, you could have told him like, "Hey, Boz, this isn't a mask; it's sunscreen."
I also loved that song when it came out. I like weird stuff. And he's a weird man, and I like his stuff.
I love reading his graduation speech over and over and over again.
Oh, I've never read
If
that
you're not
before.
familiar with it, look up Boz Luhrmann graduation speech.
Yeah, I will.
It's phenomenal. So you are understudying Satine, but you get to play her on the runs. So I've got a two-pronged question. Number one, what's it like playing Satine? And number two, what was it like getting to play Satine on your birthday?
Oh, well, that was really special. It is nice to jump into something new and different. I'm used to playing Arabia every single night, and now it's almost like muscle memory. So I can trust that I know it, and then kind of like play within that. And then playing Satine, I don't get to do it that often, and so when I do, I'm very, very focused on what I'm doing, and kind of there is a difference in character. Not that Arabia only has a couple lines, but her personality, I feel like, is very different than Satine. So, yeah, just jumping into something different keeps me feeling fresh and excited. It keeps it new and exciting. And I did get to play Satine on my birthday, September 24th, in San Francisco. And I grew up in Northern California, so I was able to have my mom and her family, my dad and his family, a bunch of friends, and I packed the house, so many people that I knew, and it was really one of the most special birthday gifts was to be able to have all of those people in one place to see me.
That's amazing. Do you before the night that you go on, does the whole cast do like a special rehearsal with you and everything?
No, we will periodically have kind of brush up rehearsals. If someone's going into a new role, you get a put in rehearsal, which means like whoever's going into the new role does, full costume changes, full makeup, everything. And everyone else is just there to be bodies in the space so they know where they're going. But yeah, from here on out, not a lot of rehearsal, just kind of like, just be ready,
Well,
just in case.
speaking of playing in front of that big audience for your birthday, what's it like just in general? Like, think back to little Nicci, being in community theater, even think back to shy little Nicci. And now here you are traveling across the country, singing in front of thousands of people a week. What does that feel like?
It is energizing. It can feel like, I will say specifically, we've had great audiences everywhere, but consistently, Minneapolis had incredible audiences every single night. And when that curtain rises and you hear the boom click, people would cheer like it was an arena concert. And I felt like a superstar. And it always feels good, but there's different levels of good. And then like the curtain goes up and you look out and you think you can see thousands of people, but you can't because the lights are right in your face. And that kind of, it's better that way. You can't see how many people are there. You just focus on doing your thing and not looking at the people.
And I also want to clarify to the audience, like when you said Arabia only has a couple of lines during the show, but you are like all over the show.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like.
I get some really good solos and I'm dancing all over that stage. So I'm definitely there.
And then one final question in regards to audiences, and then we're going to get into our "and now you know" segment. I should ask you, Nicci. We're going to go a little over an hour. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. Because there's no constraints here on Fireside. Your show doesn't have to be an hour. It could be an hour and 10 minutes, and maybe that's what we're looking at because we still have a lot of donut talk to do. A
True.
lot. But on the final question of Moulin Rouge and audiences, so with me, you got lucky. Like I'm one of those audience members that, like, oh my God, my jaw drops. I reach out to you. You're so gracious. all of that, but have you had any weird experiences where it's like, please stop sending me messages?
uh, Not very much. I rarely check my message requests on Instagram. I'm really bad at that, so I'm sorry to anyone who has sent me a message and I haven't responded. I probably just haven't seen it. But there was that one donut catch-all dumb guy. If any of you have followed along on my stories and my donut adventures, there's this silly little beautiful like donut jewelry box with gems and jewels and sparkles, and I was like, this is $98. It's dumb. If anyone wants to sponsor it, here's my Venmo. Joking, but whatever. And this guy sends me messages like, this is so below you. You are so talented. You could get any man you want. I'm like, what does this have to do with getting men or my talent? It's a silly, beautiful. So that's the only like really weird experience that I've had. And I think maybe luckily for me, like I look very different, maybe not very, but different in real life than I do in the show. I wear this big, crazy blonde wig in the show. And then I come out of the theater with like kind of purpley hair and I take all my makeup off and people are like, who is she? Was she? Who knows? So if I want to, I can kind of sneak out.
Very good stories there. And of course, at the end of the day, you ended up getting the donut catch-all.
Yes, thank
because
you.
It was not to be denied. And I saw like a mutual, and it's all about mutual love of donuts.
Yes, the people who get it, get it.
Yeah, and that's coming up because right now it's time for...
And now you know.
Yes, it's time for the And Now You Know segment here on All Walks of Life. Nicci.
Yes.
We just started talking about donuts. Did you know the origin of the donut hole?
No.
Well, there's many, many stories, but the story that prevails to the top is that in, let's see, what was it, 1847, there was a ship captain, Hanson Gregory, an American, and he was aboard a lime trading ship since he was 16 years old. His mother was on the ship, and apparently his mother created these lime nutmeg cinnamon donuts because they were traveling through areas and picking up these new spices. But the son, who became the captain of the ship, found that these fried doughs were so hot, to cool them off, he would slide them down the spokes of his, the steering thing.
Yeah.
And thus, all of a sudden, his mother then realized, wait a second, these donuts cook so much better if we create a hole. And so he claims to have then found a pepper box that's circular, and they started punching holes before she fried them.
Wow. That is fascinating, and now I know.
Yes.
And now you know.
Nicci,
Yeah.
did you know that there's so much to know about donuts, and we don't have time to get into it because I want to talk about donuts, but the first known use of the word donut, spelled Doughhnut, was from 1808 in a short story by Washington Irvine, where he described a spread of fire cakes and donuts, balls of sweetened dough fried in hog's fat and called donuts. And he spelled them Doughnuts. And that's the first time in 1808 that anyone ever saw that word printed.
Wow.
Furthermore, the first time we ever saw DONUT printed was in 1900 by George W. Peck in his story Peck's Bad Boy and His Pa, in which a character is quoted as saying, Pa said he guessed he hadn't had much appetite, and he would just drink a cup of coffee and eat a donut. 1900, that was the first time. So yes, so Nicci.
Did you know these things? Maybe you did. But if you didn't, and now you know.
Yes.
No.
And now we know. So, Nicci, I am dying of curiosity because actually, the day that we met and got to sit down for a minute, it was so freaking hot that day. I was like dying of heat.
It was the
You were just
worst.
done with your show and you were hot. And, it was in between shows. So, anyway, I didn't even get a chance to ask you, but now I get to ask you in front of a worldwide audience.
Right.
Where does your passion for donuts come from?
So it's a bit of a story. It all started in 2020, and dance classes were opening back up online. And I decided I was going to take a dance class with some friends. And we rented out a studio that was right next to the Krispy Kreme flagship store in Times Square. And my friend Makai and I got there early. So we're like, you know what? Let's get a donut. We went inside and I saw this beautiful donut that looked like a jewel. It's the Big Apple donut with this like mirror glaze and a little pretzel stem and a fondant leaf. Like, that's beautiful. How much is that? And they said it's $11, an $11 donut. And so I posted it on my Instagram story and I was like, y'all, this is crazy. This donut is $11. If you want to fund this stupid donut, here's my Venmo. Fully just as a joke. I did not expect anyone to do anything with that. It was just like, this is so dumb. Sponsor me. And then we went and took the dance class online. And then I looked at my phone and somebody had given me $20 and somebody else had given me $5. I'm like, Nicci, we need to know what this donut is like. And by the next day, I had $98 to get a donut. And I did a donut live. Thank you. Thank all the people who sponsored my dumb donut adventure. Then the following day, Makai and I went back down. We got, I think, 5 of those donuts. And I did a full review. And that was the birth of the donut adventures. And I've always loved donuts because they're magical and they're wonderful and they're all so different. There's so many different kinds. But my best friend Jordan loves them even more than I do, I dare say, and would always give me donut inspirations if she heard about donuts around town that I would try. And that's kind of, that was the birth of my donut legacy.
If you're just tuning in or watching the replay, you're watching All Walks of Life. I'm here with Nicci Claspell, wonderful artist, performer, actress, singer, dancer. Thanks for being in our live audience. Jonathan, Ingrid, Anthony, Lois, Deanna, Chris, Mike, and Michelle. And thanks for all of you watching the replay. And now we've talked about her career in theater and we've talked all about Moulin Rouge. And now we're talking about donuts. So I love how you got into donuts. And now you kind of post videos in every port. So you're not looking for a lover in every port. You're looking for a donut in every port.
Yeah, well, maybe both if it works out, but definitely donuts first.
Yeah, and so it's amazing. So like 2020 was kind of the birth of your donutism and such.
Yeah.
I would say for me it's been interesting because I grew up in a very blue collar factory home in Chicago, the suburbs of Chicago, and there was a Mr. Donut a few blocks away, so it was kind of like a staple of ours. But by the time I got into high school, I was very shy. And I decided, I think the summer between my sophomore and junior year, in my high school, which was 10 miles away from my school, a Dunkin' Donuts was opening and I got a job there. But my name tag said that I was Art because my middle name was Arthur. But I decided, I was so shy in high school, I think and it was a big school, like 6,000 kids. So most of the kids didn't even know me. And that I would just have this whole new persona of this guy, Art, that works at the donut shop. And I invented my own types of specialty donuts and I just loved everything about it. And then, after I came out of my shell my senior year, that Dunkin' Donuts, I wasn't working there anymore, but it became like the hub of social activity because back then in the 80s, we didn't have cell phones to find out where everyone was or where the parties were.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of left that information at Dunkin' Donuts. So you would just have to stop in there and old
Wow.
Johnny would say, "Oh, it looks like they're at so and so's house or whatever." But ever since then, I've had a passion for donuts, and my Instagram handle is Donut Spirit.
Mhm.
I've always had a dream of opening up a donut shop. So when I meet a fellow donut lover and we know that it's beyond. Some people are like, "Oh, you like eating donuts? You're so gluttonous," but it's not that at all. Like I
No.
always tell them, it's the essence of donuts. There's just something about them and their place in society. You
Yep.
know.
Yep.
So that being said, what would you say is your favorite donut?
Okay. The first one that I thought of was the almond old fashioned from Donut Vault in Chicago. I
Ooh,
only went there one time and right before they were closing, so everything was 50% off. And they had really, really incredible donuts, interesting ones, different size donuts, different shaped donuts. Um, but that one was just delightful. I think a glazed old fashioned for me, if you do that right, you don't need anything else. But I will also say I discovered mochi donuts, which the texture is totally different.
yep.
It's really wonderful. It's got like chewiness and like a little bit of a crisp outside, but it's still soft. And Dochi in Denver, all of their donuts incredible, as well as Third Culture in the Mission in San Francisco. Their was it Thai iced tea butter mochi donut? Out of this
Oh,
world.
that sounds amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
And there are people out there that you know they lay shade on Dunkin' Donuts and Krispy Kreme. But first of all, Krispy Kreme, of course, is, in my opinion, the ultimate donut. Not just because they make them, they're not huge. To me, that's key.
Mm-hmm.
I hate going to the little donut shop on the corner and they're these big, huge things,
Yeah, you don't need the
with
whole
no
thing.
flavor.
Yeah.
They taste processed. I'm like, "Yeah, what are you doing?" Like Krispy Kreme, they're so soft and tender, and they're not huge.
Yep.
And so I think they do it right. And the people that lay shade on Krispy Kreme, like that they're too corporate or too cool, it's like, forget that noise.
I mean, there is something to be said about some chains are chains because they are so good. They had to make more stores, you know? And I feel like that's true for Krispy Kreme. It's so good. They got to share it with the whole country. They got to
Yeah,
make sure everyone can try it.
and the original owner of Krispy Kreme, I'm trying to look up, I don't remember his name, but his son or his grandson now runs the business. Let's see here. Oh, okay. So anyway, the Krispy Kreme company has. I'm sorry, I'm not finding it right away here. Anyway, all I remember from what I read is that now the son or the grandson is in charge of the company, and it's kind of like KFC. Their secret recipe for how they make their donuts and how they created that whole conveyor belt of making donuts, which is half the fun of going there, is watching the donuts on the conveyor belt, is locked up in a safe in North Carolina. But he assures us that he has put in fail safes that if in 800 years, if America forgets how to make donuts, that they will be able to get into that safe and make donuts again.
Good.
So
That's
that's
the kind of reassurances we need.
that is good for future generations. Now, Nicci Claspell, I'm going to squeeze in one last quick segment before we go. What is that noise? What was that?
Wheels of Wisdom.
Ah, we're squeezing in the Wheels of Wisdom segment. Nicci, this is where we just get some wisdom laid on us by people from topics we've talked about.
Mhm.
My first Wheels of Wisdom is from Mr. Boz Lerman.
Oh,
He's quoted as saying, "Don't waste your time on jealousy. Sometimes you're ahead, sometimes you're behind, The race is long, and in the end, it's only you with yourself. And I'm actually now thinking that might be a quote from his graduation speech because it sounds very graduation speechy. And now I'm just going to lay three really, usually I do two quotes. So I'm going to lay three real quick ones on you here. Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons, is quoted as saying, "Donuts, is there anything they can't do?" He gets it. He gets it totally.
Yeah, he's one of us.
Jamila Jamil, she's an actress from The Good Place.
Her. She's
Yeah,
wonderful.
and now she's on She-Hulk. She is quoted as saying, "With a donut in each hand, anything is possible." She gets it. She gets it all the way. And finally, going back in time, Oscar Wilde has a famous donut quote: "The optimist sees the donut, the pessimist sees the hole." How about that?
That's a thinker.
And in the spirit of Wheels of Wisdom, you've stuck with us 10 minutes overtime, but I just want to stretch it out 2 more minutes. What advice, Nicci Claspell, would you give to a young person that wants to do what you do, who wants to do theater, who wants to even be an actress, a singer, a dancer? What's your advice to that young Nicci out there who's watching or listening right now?
I would say don't take the risks. Take risks and don't be afraid of looking like a fool because that is when you grow. That is when you see how far your boundaries are, how far you can push yourself. And if you always like to feel comfortable and safe, then you don't grow. You don't gain more experiences. So yeah, don't be afraid of being weird, of looking like a fool, of people like, especially when you're young, people your own age, like saying you're dumb or silly or whatever, because they don't know. They don't know. They're just jealous that they don't have the guts to do what you're doing.
Absolutely. I do want to mention that Deanna Salas Freeman, another host on Fireside, and she's been in our audience, says that her favorite donut is Bavarian cream filled powdered donut.
Ooh, classic.
Yum.
Delicious.
I think my favorite is Boston cream if it's done right. It's got, and with the dark chocolate on top, not
Yeah.
not the fake milky chocolate. The Boston cream with dark. But anyway, that's great advice and inspiration. On a final note regarding you, what's next after Moulin Rouge? And also, do you have aspirations to move on to film and TV and such?
Um, as for the first question, I think I'm going to ride this for a while. I love this show. I love this tour. I love the people in it. Hopefully maybe someday I'll move up. Maybe I'll be a Satine someday, or maybe I'll go to Broadway or a different company. But I currently love what I'm doing. I think film and TV is great and fun and definitely an option. I would love to, but my heart lies in musical theater, at least right now. So that's my main focus, and whatever else comes along, I'm going to say yes. Just always saying yes.
And you know what? It looks like Anthony wants to come on stage and ask a question. So I'm going to invite him up here and see if he's got a quick thing to say before we wrap up the show. If you're still there, Anthony, I've invited you to stage, which is one of the great features here on Fireside, that people watching in the live audience can actually come up on stage.
Cool.
There he is. Hi, Anthony.
Hello.
Oh, hello. I wasn't paying attention. I was like washing dishes and stuff.
You were like, by now the show's got to be over, and
That's right. That's right.
but we
But
are wrapping up. What's your quick
so
question or thought?
well, Peter, as usual, I gotta tell you, I just love your show. I love what you do. I love your co-host, and just keep doing what you're doing. So that's all I gotta say.
I appreciate that.
Here.
Yeah, enjoy.
Thank you, Anthony. I really appreciate that. And of course, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033 really appreciates those kind words as well.
All right. Enjoy. All right, I'm gonna jump off the stage.
Thanks, Anthony.
All right, see ya.
And of course, Nicci Claspell, you keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for being my guest this week and spending so much time with us. Plus, I think, everything you had to say was so valuable for, people to hear in general, especially in the beginning when you spoke about, overcoming fear and just going out there and doing it. So thank you for sharing all that. And thanks for talking about donuts and Moulin Rouge. And
Anytime. Thank you for having me. This is really fun and really interesting, and I learned a lot as well. So thank you.
all right. So thank you for being on All Walks of Life. I'm going to say goodbye to you, Nicci, and wrap up the show.
All right.
Thanks, Nicci. Bye. All right. That was Nicci Claspell, my guest on episode 15 here of All Walks of Life. Let's inspire. I thank you all that were in the audience for watching. I thank everyone that's watching the replay or the simulcast on YouTube for watching. And I thank everyone who's listening right now on audio podcast simulcasts, not simulcasts, but replays on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Deezy, all of those platforms. I've got some fun shows coming up in the next couple of All Walks of Life. This Saturday, November 19th, I've got Kevin Bergeron. He is the co-founder of Waxworks Records, and they specialize in releasing classic horror film soundtracks on newly remastered vinyl, including a soundtrack of a classic horror film that I happen to own called Carnival of Souls. So I'm very excited to talk to him and get into talk about horror and vinyl. Also coming up Tuesday, November 29th, my guest is Ron Hartenbaum. He's actually the manager of people like Stephanie Miller, who does her radio show and her Sexy Liberal tour. Jonathan Fugelsang, he's a famous comedian. And it's going to be fun hearing the behind the scenes of what goes on with managing shows and talent like that. So thank you again to my audience here on All Walks of Life. Thanks to my co-host, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033. And I definitely look forward to seeing you all not next Saturday, this upcoming Saturday here on the Fireside app for episode 16 of All Walks of Life. Let's Inspire.